I think I'm good.
Mhm.
What were you saying, Crystal? I'll let you finish up. What was you saying?
Oh, you were talking about your green. I can see it. It's like a forest green.
Yeah, it's a little darker green. So Jill, you think we're good? All right. I'm so excited. So thank you everyone for joining our March African American Business Council meeting. If you've not seen our agenda, we have one speaker today. We'll do some Q&A at the end of her presentation. We're gonna give her about 20 minutes to share with us, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And then we'll have some announcements and share our upcoming meeting for April. And if anyone has any suggestions or thoughts on any upcoming topics that they would like for us, or people or speakers they'd like for us to bring, we're open to that as well. And so jumping right in, I was so excited to read Holly's background. Holly Childs is back in North Carolina for the third time. Having been born in Fayetteville while her dad was at Fort Bragg, and then later returning to the state for college. She studied economics for way too long at Wake Forest University, where she got her BA, and then at West Virginia University, where she received her MS, and in Oregon State University, where she received her PhD. Before deciding it was time to make her own economic impact, and is intensely passionate about creating jobs and investment through community and economic development. Holly's 25 years of economic development experience has been a world tour that included stopovers in Sacramento, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Phoenix, Columbus, and Nagayo, Japan. Did I say that right? She has been a partner in the development of more than 1.2 billion in new construction of office, retail, flex industrial, and distribution projects, and spent the better part of 3 years literally shopping for shopping centers throughout the US and Western Canada. She was the last person who moved into downtown Wilmington on New Year's Eve, so she believes that she did her part in making Wilmington, North Carolina, the #1 inbound moving destination in the United States for 2020. Holly is thrilled to be leading WDI through a new era of transformative projects and initiatives, and loves her new home downtown in Brooklyn, in the Brooklyn Arts District. And I can say from my personal experience, and also partner with her on things at Genesis Block, that I am more than thrilled with what she will bring to our community and our downtown community. As someone who has an office there and home there, I am really excited that she's leading the charge in planning what will bring about our economic growth in the downtown area. So I'm gonna stop talking and turn it over to Holly.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and I appreciate that introduction and the personal note too. I mean, it's been great meeting with you and Gerard and finding out more about Genesis Block, and certainly now plugging in not only with the two of you, but also through Natalie's work at the Chamber, and finding more ways to partner with the Chamber. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to the Business Council today and just share some of the things that are going on at WDI. I've been here now since January 4th, so just 2.5 months now, I guess. And I'm just going to go through, I have a very brief, I promise, because I know I only have 20 minutes and then I want to leave plenty of time for questions, very brief PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen and just kind of roll through some of WDI's projects and initiatives. Particularly want to focus on, just as a preview, the microloan program that we're rolling out, because I think that's going to be really something that you can use as hands-on information, not just news about, about our projects. So let me switch to that really quick. Okay, let me get sorry, 1 second. There we go. Okay, let's start at the beginning. All right, can everyone see the screen now? Yes. Okay. Tracy's nodding yes. So I'm gonna take that as good for everybody, because there's so many of you on the line that I only get a few little squares down the side now. So I just have to. Tracy is right there, so she's gonna be my person. Um, so I just want to talk to you, as I said, about WDI, and we have a number of logos for WDI, but this is actually my favorite because it says what we do, downtown economic development. So I think it's important to put out there, you know, from the very beginning, that that's what we do, and that's what we're particularly going to focus on going forward. So briefly, talking about WDI, our mission and initiatives. So our mission is to promote the economic growth and development of downtown Wilmington, and that is, you know, that is our full intent. We are going to make sure that our projects and our initiatives from here forward really do take into account, you know, is it mission driven? So new programs and initiatives I'll talk about that we've worked on with the board just over this transition period. And then, you know, I'm glad to take questions about any of these and talk about any of them more in depth, but quickly. We're going to expand our existing services. So currently, many of you may know that WDI contracts with the city of Wilmington, and I see Eris is on here as well. And Eris is, I talk to Eris, it seems like every other day. I just saw her at Lowe's, actually. So even in my off hours, I see Eris. She's everywhere. But you know, we want to look at the MSD program and how to make it better. It has been a fantastic initiative by the city to make sure that the ambassadors, that our folks are out there on the street, and clean and safe are the two primary priorities of the ambassadors. So you'll see the guys and girls in their blue jackets, and they're out and they're, you know, picking up litter, removing graffiti, greeting people coming into town, giving them directions. They now have, we just added smart codes for them to share with other people, and so you don't have to touch their phone or anything, but you can get the menus from local restaurants. So we just added that feature. We're trying to do as much as we can to improve and expand the offerings of our ambassador program. And you know, I'd also say that I was just sent an email, you know, just before we started, about what WDI considers downtown. So you know, you all know that downtown, and our definition of downtown, is growing and changing, and so should WDI in our definition of downtown. So it's no longer just the central business district. The MSD area, briefly, you know, is that bridge to bridge, river to Fifth. But we're going to look at, as we go, and continue to work with the city, and I've spoken with Eris about this, looking at expanding the boundaries of the MSD and really more clean and safe on up into the emerging business districts as well, not just the CBD focus. Developing partnerships, as I mentioned, the Chamber's been great with us, partnering most recently on Project Grace, which I'll spend a minute talking about. And Genesis Block, so I see Tracy and Gerard all the time, downtown, around town, as well as their great space that they have. And I was just there for Meemaws, and I can attest to the fact that their food is outstanding. So Genesis Block they have a hand in everything these days, I think. And so WDI is really proud to look at how we can partner with them on some of the initiatives that they're getting ready to undertake going forward. And then, you know, kind of along those same lines of supporting entrepreneurship, UNCW, we are actively working with the Center for Innovation Entrepreneurship and the Small Business Technology and Development Center to try to look at ways to partner with them to increase our focus on entrepreneurship in downtown. And then, you know, I would say we've got the kind of expanding our services, developing these partnerships. And then the third leg of that stool is that we're going to really focus on just a handful of projects and programs that we can launch new at a time, and really launch those successfully. So Project Grace, while we didn't start that conversation started 5 years ago, we certainly are trying to do our part in giving it a push. And we are very excited to announce that just this week, the County Commission voted, the Board of Commissioners voted 5-0 for Project Grace to move forward for the MOU, approving the MOU. And we recognize I know that people have very passionate, opinions about Project Grace and what it should be. We're not there yet on the specifics, so we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but this is the opportunity for all of you and for everyone in our community to really weigh in and say, if we want to design a modern, engaging civic and arts block for everyone that is just as nice as anything that's out in the suburbs. We deserve that. We deserve that downtown. So we're excited to be fully behind Project Grace at WDI, and appreciate all the support we've gotten from the Chamber and Genesis Block and other stakeholders around town. We're also talking, kind of got it back on the radar screen with East West about the Gateway project and looking at what do we do with that project and what should it become. And, Tracy's nodding her head yes, and Gerard isn't in my little squares that I can, of people I can see, but hopefully he's nodding yes too, because that's something exciting. We want to partner with Genesis Block on seeing how to fit kind of Genesis Block and what they're doing into the Gateway project. So I think, stay tuned for future opportunities for us to work together on that. And then 10th Street Station, which is what the kind of the working title name is for the soda pop district area. That is the old soda pop factory. That's Coca-Cola factory that's undergoing renovation and planning and trying to reimagine those blocks as well. So one thing I want to stress is that we're really focused on my background, and Tracy outlined this, but is really in construction development, real estate development, and large scale projects. So what I want to see is, we can help partner with other people, but how do we get really transformative projects done rather than focus on, things that are either one-off or very limited. We want to make sure that we're really moving the needle in downtown. I should probably put in here too, because I know this may be anticipating a question, but before this question comes up, one thing that we're not doing this year, and we hate to say negative, something that we're not doing, but you can't do everything, is the downtown sundown concerts. So that's been a great part of WDI's legacy, and certainly something that brought people downtown. And we've been doing these concerts for over 20 years, I understand. And so we're going to take a look at those next year. We haven't decided exactly what to do with them going forward. We're getting a lot of folks asking about them, but I just want to let you know that those are not on for this year, given COVID and the governor's regulations still in effect. So and then particular programs. So the facade improvement grants, we're going to be doing a press release and a newsletter, and try to get out as much as we can. That we have some money currently in, not a lot. I can tell you it's about $12,000. So it's kind of a first come first serve on a handful of grants, but for up to $2,500 for businesses that are downtown. And again, this is within the MSD area. So this is only up right now as far as Fifth, but if there are businesses that are within that MSD district, we do have an MSD line item set aside where businesses can apply for a matching grant of up to $2,500. So if they were going to do a $5,000 facade improvement. So we'll get more information out about that in the next week or so. And then the last thing that I want to spend some time on in the next few slides is our microloan program, which we're just getting ready to launch. So our microloan, we think now WDI is certainly in that in this unique position of seeing our downtown and the impacts to our downtown businesses, and trying to figure out how can we best help them in recovery from COVID-19 and starting over or just staying afloat, frankly. How can we help them kind of power through this last bit before everybody's vaccinated, and hopefully we get back to somewhat normal on just mitigating their operating, their cost challenges, and supporting them. So we decided that we would, we had a pot of money that was available, and decided that we would ask the city council, and I'm going to cover that, but for permission to kind of roll that in. That was a capital improvement fund, sort of capital improvement loan program previously, into a microloan program. So we changed the structure for that a bit. So these are our general loan terms. And again, I'm happy to send anyone and everyone information. My contact information is at the end of this, as well as, you can certainly always reach out to me through, through our website or through other folks. Our loan terms only commercial business owners. It's up to $20,000. So I mean that it's not a lot of money, but it's 3 or 4 months of operating expenses you can use for a small business to help keep them going. You know, we can extend this not only to, this is not only within the MSD, but also our emerging districts. And so, you know, we think that there's so much more to the city now and to what we collectively consider downtown, that we shouldn't just say this is an MSD only boundary, because this is a WDI program, and MSD is only one of the things that we do. So since this is WDI managed as a whole, we want to be able to offer this to, you know, whether it's the Soda Pop District or the Cargo District, South Front. Aris, I put that in just for her, that north side at the end, because I had not used that previously in an example. And she said, what about north side? And I said, that's great, we should put that in there. So I want everyone to know that we're stretching out to the other districts within the city. $20,000 maximum term of length of time is up to 5 years. And our loan rate, which is fantastic, I mean, particularly for small businesses to be able to get this kind of access, is 3/4 of New York Prime. So that was, you know, that's still running under 2.5%. And then I think, you know, one of the best parts, other than the great low interest rate, is that we do a payment deferral for the first 6 months. So while businesses are trying to get back on their feet, they don't have to worry about any payments back to the loan pool for 6 months. And then I have listed just the eligible and ineligible expenditures, but you know, basically you can use it, as I said, up to 3 months of rent or mortgage payment. You can use it on inventory, furniture, all the things you would use a regular bank loan on, but some of those operating expenses that you can't, like rent or mortgage or equipment repairs. And, you know, then we're trying to be kind of innovative about it. So expanding e-commerce capabilities. If there are other things that you can think of, we'd be happy to consider those. Like I said, we want this to be as flexible as possible. What we don't want to do is encourage that you hire someone but can only afford it through this loan, and so we don't have personnel expenses and salaries on there. And then unless you own your building, we really want this to be, even the businesses that are leasing, which is, you know, most of the businesses that are downtown are leasing their space. We want this to be about the business, the small business, not about the owner of the building. So we want to really say that this is not about building renovations unless you're an owner. And then we really, we love our downtown, but we don't want you moving from one part of it to another. So if you move to another building, you know, those moving expenses are not eligible. And then vehicles as well, which is pretty typical. I'm not going to go through these individual steps. I'm just going to tell you we partnered with Civic Federal Credit Union. We used to do the larger capital improvement program with local banks, and then whenever we got to this where we wanted to do this microloan program, it's it's obviously very hands-on, and it's not something that the local banks were as excited about as we were. So we've been asked by Civic Federal Credit Union if they run these programs in other parts of the state, but they are a North Carolina based company in Raleigh, and so we are working with them right now. We will do the initial intake, but I and my board, just as kind of reassurance as well, we don't have your financial information. That's going to be between you and the credit union underwriters. So we're just the intake mechanism, and then we're helping get a checklist together for you to go through the process. The Civic Federal Credit Union will communicate to us the approval or not of the loan application, and we'll get back to you regardless, because we think we want to help you through this process in any way that we can do that. And then Civic Federal Credit Union will administer the loan, so the payments will go through them. The money that is being loaned out is backed by our money, WDI's money. We have it's about $560,000 now in an account that's backing this program. So timetable, you can see that, as I outlined, we do the intake and receive the application, but then there's the underwriting. We expect the whole thing. If you have your financial, stuff together, then we can go from application to closing in 2 weeks. We don't want to make this, it's going to take us 30 days or 45 days, because you don't have that long. I mean, if you need the money, you need it now, and you're a small business. So here's the bottom line. These were kind of the points that we expressed to the county or to the city council as well. We want to make sure that we invest in our downtown businesses. And as I said, we previously had a larger loan program, and whenever you have $500,000 or $600,000, you can either help 5 or 6 businesses because it was up to $100,000 loan program, or you can help 25 or 30 small businesses. And so we really felt it was important to get this to spread further and reach more businesses. And so that's a big reason why we changed the program up. As I mentioned, interest rate below 2.5% and no payments for the first 6 months. And happy to report that just a couple weeks ago now, City Council did approve us reallocating, this funding and putting this money, which was originally a CDBG. It was, HUD CDBG money that it was in the account that had kind of grown over the years. So we needed to kind of confirm that we were okay to do this with the city. They've given us the blessing. They're excited about the program. So we're finalizing the mechanics for this. So we have the forms and all of that, and we have a mechanics call with Civic at the end of this week on Friday. So I was telling people March 15th, and then here we are on the 17th. But anyway, maybe I just was a little overly excited about it. We should be good to go after Friday with sending applications out to folks and getting them on board for the program if they're interested. So that is it. That's my quick presentation about the microloan, but I am happy to answer any questions. My email is there, holly@wilmingtondowntown.com. So please encourage you to email. I'm happy to speak with you individually about the program, and we want to make sure we get it out there just as much as we possibly can. And one thing about this program, and in talking with the City Council, was to make sure that women and minority businesses, that all of those folks that have been especially hard hit by the pandemic, that they were absolutely encouraged to apply, that we try to get that out as much as possible. So I would appreciate, and I'm glad to get the opportunity to speak to this group, because I would appreciate as much help as you could give me in trying to engage with minority businesses, with Black businesses, with women-owned businesses, with every different kind of business that you can think of that could benefit from this program, and particularly those that have been harder hit. We want to make sure we get it out there. So I'm asking for your help today too. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Holly. That was a great overview. I know I've heard you talk about the microloans program quite a bit, and now I appreciate the greater understanding of it. And you've shared a lot of nuggets in that first slide that I'm sure people probably wanted a few more details on. So I'm just going to open it up to questions that may come from the participants on the Zoom today. And if not, I'll ask. I have some. One of the questions that I've heard come up before, and we talk about it from a downtown perspective, is keeping local and small. And what are your thoughts on that mix of chain businesses and the broader businesses, and then the local businesses, when you look at economic development and the design for downtown?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, the bio, the shopping for shopping centers, right? So because I was throughout the U.S. and Western Canada, whenever I did a lot of retail work, I do have a lot of relationships with national and regional retailers. So, I've said before that if I had $1 for every time I've been asked about getting a grocery store to downtown, then I could already walk away from this job and retire. But I think, it may well be that things are like a national grocery store, like a national retailer, are interested in Wilmington. It's growing. It's a great place. We all know it's a great place to invest and a great place to live. But I think the key is finding ways to integrate national and regional retailers alongside our small businesses to create a destination, really, to have a good mix where people are going to want to come downtown, and they may not know the other stores, but if you're right next to a national retailer and they say, oh, I might want to check that place out too, then it's a good place to be. I mean, retailers particularly are looking for, you know, more foot traffic. And I think the same is true with restaurants and other types of businesses. If we can just kind of create that ecosystem where we have a good mix within blocks, you know, I don't think that we want to look at just making Wilmington losing its character and being filled with chains. That's certainly not the objective for economic development. And I come from a long line of small business owners in my family, so I completely respect that we need to be mindful of whatever we're looking to bring downtown and how it affects others.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. Holly, Margie Herring, I work with the Harrelson Center. I'm sorry that I missed you when you took your tour last week. We were glad to have you. Are there still some categories of business that you recognize are still needed downtown insofar as you're building your residential population? Are there still, I remember hearing, we need a dry cleaners, we need a veterinarian, you know, are there categories of business that you're still looking for?
Yeah, I think we're going to take a look at that while we get a lot of, as I mentioned, you know, get a lot of feedback specifically about grocery stores or a particular favorite kind of store. And, you know, I used to say this whenever I was in the shopping center development world too. It's not like you're, you know, kind of the fairy godmother and you can just wave your wand and make everybody's favorite store come to town. But I do think as we continue to look at how do we do these larger projects like Project Grace and like the Gateway Project and others, we need to do, you know, probably an updated survey of what is it that people want and what types of businesses and what are the missing businesses that, you know, we can help impact. So, so again, you know, open to your suggestions, and you know, you guys are all the people who have lived here for years. I can only claim 2.5 months now, like week 10 or 11 or something. So I would appreciate any input you have about what you'd like to see downtown. I mean, it's you know, it's all of it's our community. So.
Good afternoon, Holly. Great presentation. Could you speak to what do you think the impacts of Live Nation and the waterfront park on in downtown, the impact that will have on small business in the downtown area?
Sure. Yeah, I'm really excited about Live Nation and North Waterfront Park. I've spoken several times with the regional manager for Live Nation and the regional director, and she is very excited about their presence here. And we hope that we're going to get a list of who's playing soon. Concerts should be coming out soon, but very excited too about their reception in town as far as people wanting to already sign up, wanting to get those tickets. And, you know, they're selling seats and there's not a schedule out yet. So it's, you know, got a lot of the VIP seats. So I think people in this town, they recognize are hungry for this arts and culture, for this live music. And you know, one of the things I think we're going to have to continue to look at as we grow, and a big part of that growth being on the north end of town, is making sure that we have a good transportation network. So that kind of goes back to the discussion, which is big right now, right, on Port City Trolley, and trying to make sure that because there isn't enough parking, and you open up North Waterfront Park and you put all those folks down there for a concert, trying to make sure that they don't only go to the concert, but they have stops along the way where they have dinner and drinks. And, you know, I want to see it not just be confined to one area, but really to make sure that we have a way to navigate around the city, and all of our small businesses can benefit from concerts. I also think it's, you know, it just kind of to add to that, it's not just about the concerts. I know we're all focused on Live Nation. I am too, you know, right now, but it's going to be a great park, right, for everybody. So there's going to be a lot of other park programming that I think is going to be exciting for that whole area.
I think everybody asked the question, or when you go right out to the end of the water and right on Market, is that the construction on the Riverwalk. Are there any timelines on when that part of the Riverwalk will be completed?
Yeah, I'm going to put Eris back on the spot for that one because this, the city and she is all over that for what's going on down on the riverfront and what the timing and schedules are. I know that it's been painful, but growing is hard, and I think it's exciting to see that much investment going on the riverfront, and especially whenever we've got the #2 river walk in the country. I mean, I'm thrilled that the city is doing so much. So I don't know, Eris, if you want to speak to that.
Thanks, Holly. I think it's going to be closer to sometime midsummer before that area is open, because we're still trying to work through the engineering of how to reconstruct the visitor center and what to do with that property. So it's probably going to be closer to the mid or later part of the summer before that's reopened.
Thank you, Eris. Are there any other questions?
It was fast. I talked even faster than I usually do. So I saw those 10 slides.
Not as fast as you talked on Monday morning, Holly.
Well, that was timed, Natalie. That was a whole different thing. Whenever I found out I only had 3 minutes, trying to squeeze 3 pages into 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot.
Is there anything on your slides you want to go back and revisit and speak to a little bit more? Since we went so
You got a
fast.
question from Ann?
This is Ann Patterson. I am a mentor with SCORE, and we provide free mentoring for new and for existing small businesses. And my question is the micro loans, which I'm very excited about, are they for existing businesses or are they for startups as well?
Yes, in a word. They're for both existing businesses and for startups. We want to. I will say, I think if they're a startup, we'd like to see. We want to be smart about it, right? Nobody wants to just throw money at something that's not going to have some support. So I think we would, if there are folks that are with the SBTDC or with SCORE or working with Gerard and Tracy, if there are businesses that are startups but they're supported and we feel like that they have a solid business plan, they kind of have a network, then I think we're going to look at startups too. We hadn't really said like no startups, because I think that's just wrong. We want to foster entrepreneurship and startups, but we want to make sure that they're also properly supported.
I have one more quick question for you, Holly.
Sure.
With all of the development that is happening downtown, if you, with what the plans are for the next several years, if you were going to speak to small business owners and entrepreneurs, are there any sectors of the economy that you think that there's a good opportunity for them to either learn more about, pursue, to align their business or themselves with opportunities in downtown?
Well, I've heard you, Gerard, actually talk about a number of those that I think are great. The agriculture, food production, the tech, an entrepreneurial fintech. I mean, certainly we have a basis in that, but we know other things that we can launch. Construction. I mean, goodness, we all know that there's plenty of construction work to go around. And, I think trying to get folks more involved in the trades. We are just, and I know this is a workforce problem across the country, but trying to make sure that we're preparing people and getting the workforce. And, I know Natalie's done a lot of work around that. So Natalie, I don't know if you want to speak to some of the things the Chamber's doing as far as workforce development, but I think, those are some of the sectors that I see that have a real shot in the coming years.
Sure, and Gerard and I've had this conversation many times as well, and we'll continue to have it, but I do think that there is a need in the construction industry, not only for talent for the existing companies, but real opportunity for startup companies, especially in the minority community. It's a missing link in our community for sure. Our logistics industry is growing really rapidly, and there are opportunities there, not only again for talent for the existing companies, but a real potential with the state ports here and all of the investments that are being discussed potentially about locating warehousing, expanding current warehousing. There are a lot of opportunities there as well. And then, of course, as you said, the food service industries. Shamika, my ribs were amazing last Friday night. And then also the fintech. And healthcare, as always, you don't think of healthcare as much of a startup kind of an industry, but it is. We've got some phenomenal healthcare startup companies in this community. So,
and I mentioned that because we get a lot of data and information related to the disparities in the community, but we're trying to reframe that conversation to speak more in depth about what the opportunities are, so that we can provide somewhat forecasting and being able to plug minority businesses into these industries, because they are high growth industries. And we speak with so many people that talk about the demand shortages. And so it was great to hear that from you, Holly, and you, Natalie. So now the people that are on this call have a much better framework to talk about opportunities for businesses to be able to form, to grow, and also workforce opportunities. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Holly, I would love it if you would sort of talk about, you and I have had these conversations from early on about the ways that we can all partner, the things that you see we can do together, Genesis Block, the Chamber, the Small Business Center, SCORE, all of the organizations that touch businesses in the downtown core. Where do you see partnerships coming along in the near future?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. I think it always amazes me how many organizations there are doing these great things, and the opportunity to work together collectively on some of the projects, and we've found those just almost on accident, right? Like things like Project Grace, where we say, hey, this is a big thing. Like we all need to kind of pull together and see what we can do with this to support it. So that kind of led to, and while Natalie and I were certainly already talking about other initiatives and just in broad strokes, whenever you have something to really focus on, like a Project Grace or like a Genesis Block and their concept for creating these, we're going to talk about innovation neighborhoods and those types of big ideas. I think we all want to try to work collectively on and bring our resources and talents to the table. And I don't think that anyone kind of lives in the silo, right? That you can get anything done. We wouldn't have gotten the Project Grace 5-0 vote if it would have been just one group or just one organization pushing for it. It had to be a team effort, and I think we need to work like that, looking at what are the big projects and what are the big things that will move Wilmington forward, and how can we collectively with our partners make those things happen. No big projects happen alone.
Holly, this is Michelle Holbrook. I work for Corning. I'm also this year's chair of the Chamber of Commerce. Great job on today's presentation. Also, thank you very much for that collaborative partnership on Project Grace. I want to build on what you were just talking about. I think Tracy did an outstanding job sharing with all of us just the depth of your background, all the experiences that you've had, the different communities that you've been a part of and gotten to see. We can only see our world through our own personal experiences, our own lenses. So as you now come in with a very different lens of what is possible, can you talk a little bit more about those potential big ideas, those aspirational things that you've seen work really well in other places, that as we build those collaborative partnerships, we can all start to work toward that next aspirational or those legacy types of things. Can you share with me what you've seen and what you think might be possible for us?
Sure, yeah. I think Wilmington has such great potential because, as you mentioned, these groups that are all working together on various initiatives, the work that Genesis Block is doing, for example, if there are ways to tie them with CIE and with WDI and with the Chamber to support entrepreneurship as a whole network, from beginning to end, I think we can look at those opportunities. One of the things that strikes me is just that I think there's been a lot of great investment, certainly in the last 5 years in downtown. You see a lot of private investment and private-public partnerships starting to take place. But there can be more, you know. I think because you do get, and everybody does. I mean, me too, right? You get kind of in your own world as far as your geography. Whenever you do go to other places and you kind of see what other people have done, things like a Project Grace become sort of, why wouldn't you do this? I mean, it's kind of a missing piece in downtown. And the more that we can kind of take a look at those missing pieces, and then how do we build together something great in areas like that, I think that's going to be really helpful. We have a great team here. I mean, you know, and I don't mean just WDI. I mean WDI, the Chamber, Genesis Block, the Board of Commissioners. I mean, everyone has been, I think, aligned. And I think, you know, that's the best part about the whole situation right now in Wilmington, right, is that I feel that it's a time whenever we can all work together. And that doesn't happen very often whenever you have people kind of all rowing together. And so I'm excited about it. I mean, I think, you know, whenever I came in and the board and kind of through the hiring process, we were talking about vision for Wilmington going forward. There's such a strong vision, and I think, you know, we're working on a strong shared vision of what we can become downtown. And I'm excited. So I appreciate that. And thank you for your support, by the way, and your words about Project Grace. I mean, I think it was fantastic. You got the quote in the paper. I mean, you did a fantastic job of really putting it out there that we need to do this. It's the right thing to do, and it's what businesses expect.
Did I see a hand? Oh, that's Megan rubbing her hair. I thought I saw Megan put her hand up. Okay. Are there any other questions? I think we're almost at our time to go to our announcements and also, but are there any other questions before?
Would this be a good time to talk about the Rhonda's, I see Rhonda Bellamy is on here, about the trail bed, the trail project? I think that's really visionary. I love what that might do for downtown and the broader area.
Hey, Margie, I agree. I think it's actually a full agenda item, really, to give it, Rhonda, the due its due. So
I love that idea. I'm really excited
Tracy
about that project.
So
Well,
I am a big fan of Rhonda's, and I can tell you that even before I got here for the job, that Rhonda, she was on a Zoom, so she was one of the first people I met, virtually at least, in Wilmington, about the trail and the green space and the connection. And I love that. I mean, I think you know, that's just such a huge part of economic development, is finding ways to attract and retain our folks in downtown and in the city at large. You know, so Rhonda, I'm a big fan of what's going on, and would love to hear. I'll tune in for the next one if you spend the whole time on it.
Okay, I will just be brief. Thank you all for your stated support of this project, which is really a community-driven process. You might wonder how the founding executive director of the Arts Council ended up being the poster child for a park. But it came because the community came to us and asked us to help facilitate this process. And we've been very happy to provide a cultural plaza in a 6-block area spanning from 3rd Street to McRae to use as a recreational or the cultural plaza with history and waymaking, wayfinding, other amenities that you would expect in an urban linear park. And so we're excited about that. We were in fact expected to talk about that with the Chamber yesterday afternoon, Jill. And we are, I think, rescheduled for April 6th, but I'd be happy to come back and talk about particulars of the project. Thank you.
Well, that's an excellent segue, because I think the next thing on our agenda is to talk about any upcoming events and any policy updates, if we have any, and then some topics and suggestions for upcoming speakers. So I think we have one that will go on our agenda. That will be Rhonda, and coming back to speak about the trail project. Natalie, did you have any announcements or upcoming events?
I certainly have some policy updates for you guys. I hope those of you who qualified to get your stimulus check from the federal government have found that money in your checking account. If you qualify and haven't seen it yet, keep on the lookout and reach out. If you have questions, we can try to help you find a right number if you need it. At the state level, one COVID relief package has been passed. They're working on a second. Stay tuned. Last night, our school board voted to put our middle and high school children back in school full time, starting immediately following spring break. I don't know how you all feel, but I have a 16-year-old who needs a teacher looking at him all day. So I am over the moon excited, but I'm also excited about the impact that will have on our workforce. So many people have been impacted by having to educate their children and either try to hold a job or leave a job because of that responsibility. And so it's going to be good for the economy and good for our future workforce to get schools reopened again. If you haven't scheduled your vaccine, work on that. They're really close to having everybody opened up. And so hopefully you'll be able, if you're not already in a qualified group, you will be soon. Again, at the state level, they are looking at innovative ways to invest in startups and small businesses. And so stay tuned on what some of those are. We're waiting for pieces of legislation to get introduced that we have been sharing and educating our legislative delegation on some of those ideas. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted, but I think there's good news coming in that regard. And then finally, because rates of positive tests are down, because new cases are down, because vaccinations are up, things are starting to open up a bit. You may have seen in our newsletter, we are going to host a limited sized Chamber Connections in April, open outside. So we're going to test that for a first small event together again in person, and we can't wait. We are social beings. When you work for the Chamber, you're a social being, so we can't wait to have everybody back together. And we hope our first major event, our first signature event, will be June 4th on the lawn for our elected officials appreciation barbecue. So put that on your calendar. We'll be sending out information about tickets and sponsorship opportunities and all of those things, but it is a fun opportunity to watch the sunset over the river and have some good food and a lot of laughs, and to show our elected officials how much we appreciate all that they do to help us to grow our economy. So I think that'll do it for me, unless Jill or Megan have something. Next week, Public Policy Committee is going to hear from a representative of the U.S. Chamber. So we will likely get an update on a lot of things that pertain to business that are being debated in Congress sometimes as we speak. So if you are available and you are a Chamber member, because that is closed to Chamber members, but we'd love to have you join us for that and see where we can plug in at the federal level to advocate for our business's growth.
We're having a COVID update on March 31st. Novant Health, Dr. Charles Brager is doing a COVID update. He's doing a 20-minute presentation. It's on March 31st from 12 to 12:45, and then he will take all of your questions about vaccines, testing, anything you want to ask about COVID. He's calling it a spring COVID update, and it's on Zoom too.
Okay. Any other? I don't want to leave off any of the announcements. Joe, do you have any?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we may get back 5 minutes to our day. That's a whole lot of time. But I just wanted to give an update on before we close out what we will be looking our session for April, and that's the third weekend in April. And I'm proud to say at that point, we'll be about just about 3 months in, a little over 3 months in with our Minority Business Accelerator. And we open our next session of round of applications on March 29th. And so Gerard, the president and CEO of Genesis Block, will be hosting a panel type discussion with some of our accelerator participants so that they can give real live experience about what it was like to be in the Minority Business Accelerator, and hopefully encourage and let other applicants see that they can do this process as well, but by having a bird's eye view. So if you know of anyone or you know of any businesses out there that could definitely benefit from being a part of an accelerator, make sure they know about our next month's session, because that will give them more information about what it was like from the view of the actual participants. It's one thing for us to come and tell you, it's another thing for the participants to tell you what the experience has been like. So we will have that next, that will be our session for next month, and shortly after that, the applications will close. So we wanna make sure that we get some more publicity out to the community about this opportunity. So that will be next month. And it looks like we will be adjusting some of our others, because we're definitely going to be bringing Rhonda back as soon as possible. So we will have more information on the rest of the quarter out shortly for what the other 2 months of the quarter will be for our speakers. And with that, I want to thank Holly so very much. And you have her information. She shared it on the slide, but if not, we can get that to you if you have any additional questions for her. But most of all, we just want to make sure, Holly, that you know, as Chamber and as an African American Business Council Chair and Co-Chair, Joe and I, we support you completely. And we're so excited to be able to partner with you as we go forward for our economic and downtown development.
Thanks, Tracy. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak with you all today. I mean, this is fantastic to be able to, you know, come to town and be able to be connected with so many folks at once. And so I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to a lot more of it together.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
You too.